Hey crew, it's Pit and I am back with some more Esoterica. Today we are diving back into the works of Mr. Charles Haanel. This is the Master Key System Part 10. We are reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points that are brought to light by the text. It is not the format for everybody, but some people seem to find enjoyment in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue our exploration. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in the terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the corner above, in the box down below, along with the original source material so that you can understand who I am and why I stand where I do. With that being said, we are going to dive in and continue our exploration of the Master Key System with Part 10. This part tells of the law of abundance. It shows that nature has provided an abundance for all, and why some seem to be separated from this supply. It tells of a connecting link between the individual and the supply, explains the law of attraction, the law by which your own is brought to you. It tells why every experience in life is a result of this law. It is actually the result of 8 laws, right? There are 8 parts to the laws of creation. They are the law of one, the law of momentum, the law of response, the law of returns, the law of attraction, the law of genders, the law of rhythm, and the law of purpose. All of those have a fundamental part in manifestation, and there is a video linked in the corner above called The 8 Laws of Creation, where I break those down. So the law of attraction is one of them. Like it does attract light, things of a like nature do tend to cluster. That is one of the 8 laws. The law of abundance, however, is not in there. It tells why and how you attract the things which make up the sum total of your existence. It tells how you may place yourself in harmony with this law and thereby assist in bringing about desirable conditions in your health, environment, or finances. It shows that this law of attraction is fundamental and eternal, and that there is no escape from the result of its operation. A knowledge of this law is absolutely essential to those desiring to make permanent progress. A knowledge of the 8 laws is absolutely essential, right? This was working from a lack of knowledge, right? He was doing something, he was raising something up, and that is a perfectly admirable aspiration. But he was operating without the fullness of the laws, right? There is a reason why I emphasize the 8 laws of creation so much, because they are fundamental. They are exactly how it works. Once you can onboard those 8 laws of creation, your motivations will change into the ones that will actually bring the results you want, as opposed to the results you don't. This is absolutely part of it, right? He has absolutely got a key, just not the entire set of keys. Introduction, Part 10. If you get a thorough understanding of the thought contained in Part 10, you will have learned that nothing happens without a definite cause. You will be enabled to formulate your plans in accordance with exact knowledge. You will know how to control any situation by bringing adequate causes into play. When you win, as you will know exactly why. The ordinary man, who has no definite knowledge of cause and effect, is governed by his feelings or emotions. He thinks chiefly to justify his actions. If he fails as a businessman, he says that luck is against him. If he dislikes music, he says the music is an expensive luxury. If he is a poor clerk, he says that he could succeed better at some outdoor work. If he lacks friends, he says his individuality is too fine to be appreciated. He never thinks this problem through to the end. In short, he does not know that every effect is the result of a certain definite cause, but he seeks to console himself with explanations and excuses. He thinks only in self-defense. On the contrary, the man who understands that there is no effect without an adequate cause thinks impersonally. He gets down to absolute facts regardless of the consequences. He is free to follow the path of truth wherever it may lead. He sees the issue clear to the end. and he meets the requirements fully and fairly, and the result is that the world gives him all that it has to give in friendship, honor, love, and approval. And then this is true, but it is true for all eight, right? All eight interplay with each other. It is not just the law of attraction. That is a simpler way to quantify it, but you are really compressing a greater idea into the one. There are fundamental differences in the laws, right? Each one of them plays a consequential part in the fulfillment of the whole. That is why I point them out so often, right? It in part absolves me from the responsibility of you doing this incorrectly. Me telling you to check out the laws before you begin manifesting is me applying the law of purpose, right? It is me understanding the law of returns. It is me fulfilling the law of the one. And so there is a very, very real reason why I stand on the distinction that there are 8 laws and not just the one. Abundance is a natural law of the universe. The evidence of this law is conclusive. We see it on every hand. Everywhere, nature is lavish, wasteful, extravagant. Nowhere is economy observed in any created thing. Profusion is manifested in everything. The millions and millions of trees and flowers and plants and animals, and the vast scheme of reproduction, where the process of creating and recreating is forever going on, all indicate the lavishness with which nature has made provision for man. That there is an abundance for everyone is evident, but that many fail to participate in this abundance is evident. They have not yet come into a realization of the universality of all substance, and that mind is the active principle whereby we are related to the things we desire. I don't disagree there. All wealth is the offspring of power. Possessions are of value only as they confer power. Events are significant only as they affect power. All things represent certain forms and degrees of power. That, on the other hand, I don't necessarily agree with, right? Wealth is a subjective term. You can consider your wealth or consider yourself wealthy in positions that other people will consider you devoid, right? Take, for instance, some of the multi-billionaires currently walking around on the planet who are single, who have no true love in their life, who are going through divorce, who are devoid of the things which other people consider to be fulfilling, right? Now, love is a form of wealth. Having love sets you apart from someone who does not have it. That is of wealth, right? Wealth is not just money. It is the abundance of things in your life. And so, this definition of wealth as power is kind of a misaligned intention. It is going to help you draw money, but it is not necessarily going to help you draw the rest of the things in. Keep your focus not on wealth. That is a really big one, right? You can be what other people would consider abject destitution and still have the wealth of love, still have the wealth of provision. There are people who live in a cardboard box on the side of the road and they have love. There are people who live in a multi-billion-dollar or multi-million-dollar mansion and they don't. That is because their intentionality is more on the money than it is on the other things of life. Now, neither one of them are balanced, right? Neither one of them are walking in the balance. You have greed on the one hand, and who even knows what on the other hand? Probably some substance abuse, almost certainly. But there are varying ways to define wealth. It is not entirely money. And wealth is not necessarily the offspring of power. That is simply not true. People can be wealthy and have no power. That happens. Knowledge of cause and effect, as shown by the laws governing electricity, chemical affinity, and gravitation, enables man to plan courageously and execute fearlessly. These laws are called natural laws because they govern in the physical world. But all power is not physical power. There is also mental power. There is moral and spiritual power. Now, moral and spiritual power would fall underneath the lens of mental power, right? Morality is a subjective thing in your mind. Spirituality is also a subjective thing in your mind. So both of those would be a mental power. That is like the 8 laws, right? You can lump everything in the law of attraction, or you can separate it into the individual pieces. And those individual pieces fit better. Sometimes the opposite happens, and people take something that is one thing and divide it into multiple things, and that is what that was. Spiritual power is superior because it exists on a higher plane. It has enabled man to discover the law by which these wonderful forces of nature could be harnessed and made to do the work of hundreds and thousands of men. It has enabled man to discover laws whereby time and space have been annihilated, and now, apparently, the law of gravitation is to be overcome. The operation of this law was dependent upon spiritual contact, as Henry Drummond well says. We'll get to the quote in a second. As far as I am aware, we have not overcome gravitation, right? The law of gravity still affects us. Can we make changes? By that I mean flight, right? Flight is kind of overcoming gravitation, but the plane is still affected by gravity. If the engine's cut off, what happens? Right? It returns pretty swiftly to the ground. That is the law of gravitation. It is still a law enacting, right? The counteracting of that is the thrust from the propeller or the jet engine or whatever means of propulsion we are using, rockets or whatever going into space, because that is possible. And so I'm just pointing out, right, that we have not overcome the law of gravitation. We have learned to use it. That is a subtle distinction, but it is a distinction that should be made. We have not overcome a natural law. That is not something that has happened. Now, as Henry Drummond well says, in the physical world as we know it, there exists the organic and the inorganic. The inorganic, or the mineral world, is absolutely cut off from the plant or animal world. The passage is hermetically sealed. No, it's not. These barriers have never been crossed. No change of substance, no modification of environment, no chemistry, no electricity, no form of energy, no evolution of any kind can ever endow a single atom of the mineral world with the attribute of life. The theory of spiritual evolution, which is admittedly my own theory and therefore subject to whatever, I hold differently, right? The first plane of existence is the atom. It is the inorganic mineral world. It is the individualized pieces of carbon and hydrogen and oxygen. Those can change. Those can go from individualized hydrogen and oxygen into hydrogen peroxide or water or various other chemicals. Also, within that, they can be consumed either through water or by plants. Plants with their roots pull out individualized pieces of that and assimilate them into themselves. That is breaking that hermetic seal. That is why I say no right here, right? That is the incorporation of the first form of life into the second form of life. And so there is a barrier, but it can be crossed. Whenever you eat food, you are incorporating the elemental pieces of that into yourself. And so you are crossing that boundary as well. When you consume salt as a base example of a mineral that you are pulling into yourself, sodium hydroxide is salt. That is two minerals that have formed into one, and you take that and form it into yourself. That is part of that process. that is crossing this hermetic seal. So, only by the bending down in this dead world of some living form can these dead atoms be gifted with the properties of vitality. Without this contact with life, they remain fixed in the inorganic sphere forever. Huxley says that the doctrine of biogenesis, or life, only from life is victorious all along the line, and Tyndall is compelled to say, I affirm that no shred of trustworthy evidence exists to prove that life, in our day, has ever appeared independent of antecedent life. Now, this I don't necessarily disagree with. This is kind of what I was just saying, right? The bending down into the dead world, which is the minerals, some living form, which is the plant, can gift it with life, which is the incorporation. So, in part, this is saying what I was saying. Without the contact, yes, they do remain, but that contact can be between elements, sodium hydroxide, water, carbon monoxide, the various different chemicals that take place independent of us. Right? Merely these two things colliding will cause that to happen. That is a form of life, right? Taking hydrogen and mixing it with oxygen and forming water is creating life. Even if it's not a form of life that we necessarily recognize as life. It is something new coming from something that wasn't. So it does kind of appear, now that is not spontaneous, thinking, cognizant life, right? I don't believe that we evolved from amoebas or single-celled organisms of any type. I don't believe that we came from monkeys. I believe that we were created species. And so while there is variation within the species or microevolution, I don't believe in macroevolution, which is the coming from the other species. There are many reasons why not, but one of those is there is no biological imperative to lose hair covering your entire body and then having to create clothing to replace that hair. The biological imperative would be to make better hair. Physical laws may explain the inorganic. Biology explains and accounts for the development of the organic, but of the point of contact, science is silent. A similar passage exists between the natural world and the spiritual world. This passage is hermetically sealed on the natural side. The door is closed. No man can open it. No organic change, no mental energy, no moral effort. No progress of any kind can enable any human being to enter the spiritual world. And once again, no. And this one I am much more emphatic upon because I have entered the spiritual world. Me. I'm not taking somebody else's account and relaying that to you. It is my account. I have been there. Through prayer, fasting, and meditation, and even devoid of that. Prior to any application of prayer, fasting, and meditation in my life, I have had spiritual experiences where I was pulled as a soul out of this temple into the spiritual realm, by which other things happen, right? One time I had a visitation and an angel came to me. That is a spiritual experience. Another time I was pulled out of my body and I had the initiation process for the Order of Melchizedek. That is not me doing that. I didn't even know what the word meant when I heard it. You can break that hermetic seal. You can partake in the spiritual. It is something you can do. Part of that is the releasing of a chemical within your body, right? I have to assume that is the process, even though it has not been isolated for me in particular. I can flex the chakras and create a change in my vision. I can see, after that process, the subtle field surrounding things. That is their chakra. I can see the divine chakra of plants and animals and other human beings. It is a spiritual experience that I can have within this body while I am cognizant. It is something that I am sure is triggered by, dimethyltryptamine, DMT. Right? I am almost positive that that is what is happening, even though I am not positive because I've never done DMT. like as an organic compound. I have never gone and partaken of that. I've done psilocybin. That is a thing I've done. But that was that was completely different experience really than what I do here. That was the unfolding of the flower of life, though. That was the understanding of the fundamental harmonics of life came from that. That was a door that I should not have opened. I can open a similar door. I can see things of a similar nature without having to partake in those particular substances. And so today, when I say that you don't need those chemicals, it is because of that. When I tell you that that can be a handy tool for opening the door, but if you are using that particular tool, you are not really ready for that door to be open. And I don't care how many experts are on the other side of that particular argument. Because I can make that happen for myself, right? Even to the point of, like, there is a level of flexing that happens that makes the subtle field effect. There is another level of flexing, which is a greater level, that makes the very reality distort into the same way that psilocybin did. That is something that is possible. And if it is possible for me, I have to assume it is possible for you. Until you can do that for yourself, you shouldn't be opening that door. There are entities on the other side of that door. Spirituality is a real thing. There are positive and negative entities. They feed upon emotions. You feed them unintentionally. You can intentionally do that. But if you open that door, you don't have the guards in place, right? If you open them chemically, right, by ingesting an outside substance, you don't have the guards in place that are necessary for that to happen. You being able to trigger it within yourself and make it happen that way, part of the process is building those guards up, right? It is only after you have completely aligned your stack in all 8 points that you can affect that change. That change, the ability to emit the secretion, also gives you the ability to flip a switch and not return to your body if you so wish. But once you have access to it, you don't really want to take that option anymore, right? But that is an option of self-deletion. You can decide not to return. That is part of the process. If you're balanced in your stack, you don't want to take that particular step. It is only through the balance that you achieve by prayer, fasting, and meditation that you can actually prepare yourself for the battle that is your will on the other side of that door. So while I understand that it is entirely possible to chemically open that door by ingesting outside substances, it is something that I stand very firmly against. And that doesn't matter if it's some wild honey by an apostle, right? It doesn't matter if it is some podcast host telling you to take dimethyltryptamine. Both of those are equally wrong. I don't care if it is some tribe in South America who does it all of the time, telling you that it is perfectly fine while they are talking to entities that are definitely not aligned with humanity. Back to the text. But as the plant reaches down into the mineral world and touches it with the mystery of life, so the universal mind reaches down into the human mind and endows it with a new, strange, wonderful, and even marvelous qualities. All men or women who have ever accomplished anything in the world of industry, commerce, or art have accomplished because of this process. Thought is the connecting link between the infinite and the finite, between the universal and the individual. We have seen that there is an impassable barrier between the organic and the inorganic, and that the only way that matter can unfold is to be impregnated with life. As a seed reaches down into the mineral world and begins to unfold and reach out, the dead matter begins to live. 1,000 invisible fingers begin to weave a suitable environment for the new arrival, and as the law of growth begins to take effect, we see the process continue until the lily finally appears. And even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. Even so, a thought is dropped into the invisible substance of the universal mind. that substance from which all things are created, and as it takes root, the law of growth begins to take effect, and we find that conditions and environment are but the objective form of our thought. Now, this law of growth, to me, is going to be the amalgamation of the 8 laws of creation, because growth is a result of conditions. It is not a fundamental, right? Growth does not happen spontaneously. It happens because of germination. That is part of the law of returns. Everything that can be attributed to the law of growth can be broken into one of the laws of creation. So that is a subtle distinction, but to me, that is how it's going to work, right? When he's talking about the law of growth, that is taking into account all 8 of the laws of creation. The law that is thought is an active vital form of dynamic energy which has the power to correlate with this object and bring it out of the invisible substance from which all things are created into the visible or objective world. This is the law by which and through which all things come into manifestation. It is the master key by which you are admitted into the secret place of the Most High and are given dominion over all things. With an understanding of this law, you may decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee. It could not be otherwise. If the soul of the universe, as we know it, is the universal spirit, then the universe is simply the condition which the universal spirit has made for itself. We are simply individualized spirit, and are creating the conditions for our growth in exactly the same way. We talk all of the time about the Trinity, but we haven't hit it in this video, so let's hit it real quick. The Trinity is the body, which is the temple. It is the soul, which is the individualized piece of you, right? It is the individualized piece of divinity, which is you. The part that makes the decisions for the body. You say, I want to wiggle my fingers, but when you say that, you don't actually make it happen. That is the Holy Spirit, right? I say the spirit, the soul, and the body are the Trinity. Other people have different definitions for that, and that is fine for them. Mine is the one I go with. The body or the temple, the soul which makes the decisions, and the spirit which allows that to happen. The spirit is the omnipresent, omniscient, ever-pervading force that holds all things fundamentally together. You can take a small measure of control of that. That is how I have affected change within my life, and how I believe that you can affect change within your life. It is through the direct manipulation of these electromagnetic forces, through the chakras, into the divine, that makes it happen. You don't actually wiggle your fingers, the Spirit does that for you. The Spirit is the part that keeps your heart pumping, it keeps you breathing, and takes the oxygen from your breath and distributes it to your fingers. This creative power depends upon our recognition of the potential power of spirit or mind, and must not be confused with evolution. Creation is the calling into existence of that which does not exist in the objective world. Evolution is simply the unfolding of potentialities involved in things which already exist. Nothing is called from nothing. Right? There is always a base for anything that is created, and that includes manifestation. You will not manifest from nothing, and if you do, it is going to be detrimental. In taking advantage of the wonderful possibilities opened up to us through the operation of this law, we must remember that we, ourselves, contribute nothing to its efficiency, as the great teacher said. It is not I that doeth the works, but the Father that dwelleth in me. He doeth the work. We must take exactly the same position. We can do nothing to assist in the manifestation. We simply comply with the law, and the all-originating mind will bring about the result. And that is not entirely true. Right? This is the key that he is missing. You do take a small measure of control of that. You can manipulate the forces of creation through intention. You can bring the energy up and down through your stack. That is part of the meditative process, but you can do that with conscious thought. It is a process that you have to learn. It is not something necessarily instinctual and effective. You do it even if you aren't thinking about it, but when you do it and not being conscious of it, it is normally going to manifest in a negative manner. You have to take the intentionality, right? When I created the healing within me, it was me moving the energy into my throat, into my chest, which governs the arms. That is how my shoulder got healed. And my throat, right? If you don't know, I healed my throat through this process. That's why I can be so firm in this. You can take a small measure of that control. You can affect things externally, although it is normally extremely unwise to do so. There are severe repercussions for improper motivations and alignments. See the 8 laws of creation. The great error of the present day is the idea that man has to originate the intelligence whereby the infinite can proceed to bring about a specific purpose or result. Have you not been telling us for 9 chapters to do that? To focus on that, to do that, that is how you bring it into being. Right? The intelligence makes the decision. Yes, the application is not you, that is the spirit, but you make the decision for that to happen. Nothing of this kind is necessary. The universal mind can be depended upon to find the ways and means for bringing about any necessary manifestation. Now that is not what I'm saying is not holding on to the result, right? It is holding on to the intention. We talked about the triangle of opportunity, the how, the what, or the why. You hold on to one point and you hold open the funnel of opportunity. And if you hold on to 2 points, you decrease the size of that funnel's ability to take in new things. That is, in part, what is being described here, right? Like, you can set the intention of, I need this thing. That is the intelligence, setting the condition. But you don't get to say, I need this thing by this date through this means, right? You get to say, I need this thing. Or you get to say, I need the result by this day, but you don't get to hold on to the how or the what. That thing will appear, but you don't get to control how. You can only hold on to one of those points with effectiveness. And so, in part, this is right, but in part, it is not. We must, however, create the ideal, and this ideal should be perfect. That is the intelligence, right? You're contradicting yourself here. We know that the laws governing electricity have been formulated in such a way that this invisible power can be controlled and used for our benefit and comfort in thousands of ways. We know that messages are carried around the world, that ponderous machinery does its bidding, that it now illuminates practically the whole world, and that is still not true. But we know, too, that if we consciously or ignorantly violate its law by touching a live wire, when it is not properly insulated, the result will be unpleasant and possibly disastrous. A lack of understanding of the laws governing in the invisible world has the same result, and many are suffering the consequences all the time. That is absolutely true. See the 8 laws of creation. It has been explained that the law of causation depends upon polarity. A circuit must be formed. This circuit cannot be formed unless we operate in harmony with the law. How shall we operate in harmony with the law unless we know what the law is? How shall we know what the law is? By study, by observation. We see the law in operation everywhere. All nature testifies to the operation of the law by silently, constantly expressing itself in the law of growth. Where there is growth, there must be life. Where there is life, there must be harmony. So that everything that has life is constantly attracting to itself the conditions and the supply which are necessary for its most complete expression. If your thought is in harmony with the creative principle of nature, it is in tune with the infinite mind, and it will form the circuit. It will not return to you void. But it is possible for you to think thoughts that are not in tune with the infinite, and there is no polarity. The circuit is not formed. What then is the result? What is the result when a dynamo is generating electricity? The circuit is cut off and there is no outlet. The dynamo stops. That is not true. The laws are working whether you are conscious of it or not, and whether you are in harmony with it or not. Being conscious of the 8 laws of creation lets them work in your favor. You can unintentionally be aligned with that and it will still work. Or you can either intentionally or unintentionally be unaligned with the 8 laws and it will still work. It will just work in a negative manner. The rotor will spin backwards if that is how you want to look at it. You are changing the positive to negative and the negative to positive. It'll still make the motor turn, just in the wrong direction, and it will cause problems. It will be exactly the same with you. If you entertain thoughts which are not in accordance with the infinite and there cannot therefore be polarized, there is no circuit. You are isolated. The thoughts cling to you, harass you, worry you, and finally bring about disease and possibly death. The physician may not diagnose the case exactly in this way. He may give it some fancy name which has been manufactured for the various ills which are the result of wrong thinking. But the cause is the same nevertheless. That's basically what I just said. Constructive thought must necessarily be creative, but creative thoughts must be harmonious, and this eliminates all destructive or competitive thought. Wisdom, strength, courage, and all harmonious conditions are the result of power, and we have seen that all power is from within. Likewise, every lack, limitation, or adverse circumstance is the result of weakness. And weakness is simply the absence of power. It comes from nowhere, it is nothing. The remedy then is simply to develop power, and this is accomplished in exactly the same manner that all power is developed, by exercise. This exercise consists in making an application of your knowledge. Knowledge will not apply itself. You must make the application. Abundance will not come to you out of the sky. Neither will it drop into your lap, but a conscious realization of the law of attraction and the intention to bring it into operation for a certain, definite, and specific purpose, and the will to carry out this purpose will bring about the materialization of your desire by a natural law of transference. If you are in business, it will increase and develop along regular channels. Possibly new or unusual channels of distribution will be opened, and when the law becomes fully operative in you, you will find that the things you seek are seeking you. For your next exercise, select a blank space on the wall or any other convenient spot from where you usually sit. Mentally draw a black horizontal line about 6 inches long. Try to see the line as plainly as though it were painted on the wall. Now, mentally draw 2 vertical lines connecting with this horizontal line at either end. Now draw another horizontal line connecting the 2 vertical lines. Now you have a square. Try to see the square perfectly. When you can do so, draw a circle within the square. Now place a point in the center of the circle. Now draw the point towards you about 10 inches. Now you have a cone on a square base. You will remember that your work was all in black. Change it to white, to red, to yellow. That is a handy exercise, but it is not a necessary one. Once again, aphantasia does exist. If you cannot visualize, that is not going to hinder you. It may be more effective to be able to visualize, but it is not a necessity in the process. We have explained that enough that I don't need to explain it past that for here. If you can do this, you are making excellent progress and will soon be enabled to concentrate on any problem you may have in mind. When any object or purpose is clearly held in thought, its precipitation, in tangible and visible form, is merely a question of time. The vision always precedes and itself determines the realization. Lillian Whitting. Part 10. Questions. What is wealth? Wealth is the offspring of power. Of what value are possessions? Possessions are of value only as they confer power. Of what value is knowledge of cause and effect? Enables men to plan courageously and execute fearlessly. How does life originate in the inorganic world? Only by the introduction of some living form. There is no other way. What is the connecting link between the finite and the infinite? Thought is the connecting link. Why is that so? Because the universal can manifest only through the individual. Upon what does causation depend? Upon polarity. A circuit must be formed. The universal is the positive side of the battery of life. The individual is the negative, and thoughts form the circuit. Electricity moves from negative to positive. Why do many fail to secure harmonious conditions? They do not understand the law. There is no polarity. They have not formed the circuit. What is the remedy? A conscious recognition of the law of attraction with the intention of bringing it into existence for a definite purpose. What will be the result? Thought will correlate with its object and bring it into manifestation, because thought is a product of the spiritual man, and spirit is the creative principle of the universe. A vivid thought brings the power to paint it, and in proportion to the depths of the source is the force of its projection. Emerson. Advice. Remember, fully to understand grand and beautiful thought requires, perhaps, just as much time as to conceive it. Gilbert. If you wish to enjoy the utmost practical benefit from the Master Key, go slowly. Transfuse into your mind the contents of one part only each week for 24 weeks. Realize the meaning of every phrase. Consult the Master Key constantly as your perpetual help and stimulus. Each time you read the work, you will get a better understanding of the eternal cosmic principles. Tell others of the Master Key so that more and more people may reciprocate with you as conscious adepts in harmony. The publishers. And that is going to wrap up part 10. I feel like I have, once again, disagreed in the places where it was necessary, so I don't have a whole lot to add. Hopefully, I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a somewhat difficult topic, I understand. I have some unconventional views, and I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay that. It is not intentional, but it is not something I apologize for. We are here to clarify, right? That is my goal here, to clarify. You can access the spiritual. It doesn't matter who tells you you can't. I am telling you you can. You don't have to believe me. I am here to tell you, not convince you. I have revealed the means by which that is possible. It is contained in the Infinite Integration playlist, of which this study is a part. You have access to the creative powers of the universe. It is a truth. Whether or not you use them consciously doesn't even matter. If you are focusing upon the negative, you will pull the negative into your life. That is using the 8 laws of creation, whether you recognize that or not. If you focus on the positive, you will pull the positive into your life. That is using the 8 laws of creation, whether you realize that or not. You can consciously take control of that. You can consciously take control of the creative forces, the Holy Spirit, that has been given to you, not for domination of other people, but to better your life, to create healing within yourself, to call into your life abundance. That is part of why you are here. If you can learn that and understand these laws and walk in accordance with them, then it will automatically begin the process by which enlightenment will unfold. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, share, and a sub. Throw me a comment if you agree or disagree. If it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. And if there is another work that you would like to see me discuss in the manner that we are doing here, let me know in the comments. If you really like what I'm doing over here, hit me with that super thanks. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete, just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt's Take. Peace.